Hey everybody, this is Scott Gustafson, the e-business expert, coming to you from my home office here in wintry North Carolina. And today I wanted to spend some time with you and share a question that's been rolling around in my mind for the past couple of weeks here. And I'm pretty sure it's something that's entered your mind in your lifetime as well. And that question is, why am I here? What is my purpose in life for being here today? Now, before we take some time to answer that question, I want to share something with you about my livelihood and my past, so to speak. Growing up, we always had these great ideas about being somebody of importance, somebody that we always looked up to, whether it was a policeman or a fireman or an astronaut, or maybe we had these ideas of opening up an ice cream shop with 1,000 different flavors of ice cream, whatever it may be. My great idea was to work with dinosaurs, and I know that sounds crazy because dinosaurs no longer exist, but just the idea that these great gigantic lizards used to walk the earth was something that always fascinated me. And so when I heard about dinosaurs, from then on out, I was always drawing dinosaurs in class and reading as many books about dinosaurs as possible. And I'd tell all my parents and my brothers and sister about dinosaurs, probably until they just got fed up with me. And so my dream was pretty much to become an archaeologist, even though probably back then I couldn't even say the word archaeologist. But the idea of digging in the dirt and finding these massive, gigantic dinosaur bones was something that always attracted me, because it involved the two things that I liked doing the most as a child: digging in the dirt and dinosaurs. And I'm sure you had a dream like that when you were a kid, doing something wild and fascinating. But I want to turn back the clock even more to share with you someone that was a big influence in my life. And that person was my grandfather. And I brought a photo along with him. But this young fellow here is me at age 1. And this man here is my grandfather at age 83. And I was very lucky to have my grandfather as a grandfather, because he did so much for my family that there's no way in my life I could ever repay him. Well, my grandfather lived to be 100 years old, and he passed away when I was just 17. And I really regret being born when I was, because I wish I'd been born sooner. Growing up, I was only allowed to see my grandfather during the summertime when school let out, and during the wintertime at Christmas break, because we lived here in North Carolina and my grandfather lived in Michigan. You see, my grandfather came from Finland, and he was born in 1896. And when he was 10 years old, he and his family took the journey from Finland all the way to America. They came through Ellis Island, and finally they settled in Michigan. But at a very young age of 16, my grandfather dropped out of high school because he needed to work to help support his mother and father and his brothers and sisters. And from then on out, my grandfather only had a 10th grade educational level. He dropped out of high school to actually work at the school that he dropped out of. He would wake up at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning to walk to school and start the coal furnaces so that other children at the school could get the education they wanted while he had to work. And as time progressed, he would later on go to work at a family general store about 20 or 25 miles from his family farm, and maybe once or every now and then on the weekends he would borrow that family's horse to ride home to see his family, and then Sunday night he'd ride the horse back and be to work on Monday. And that was his life until he went to work for the railroad, and he was working in the mail car of the trains there, and he did that for about 40 some years. And that was his work ethic. He developed his entire life. He always felt that if he wasn't working, that he'd never be able to support himself, his family, and just be the provider that he's always wanted to be. And that's just the mentality that his father probably gave to him. My grandfather passed along to my father. He in turn passed along to me. And his work ethic was something that was really admired back then. If you worked hard, people always saw you as a real go-getter, and that actually opened up a lot of doors for him. So much to the point that my grandfather was able to send his 3 children to college, and even more, it allowed him to send all 9 of his grandchildren, including me, to college. There's not very many people these days who can say that. I sent all my children and grandchildren to college because of my hard work. And my grandfather, when he passed away a multimillionaire because of his hard work and his being thrifty. And that's something that is great, but it's also bad, because it's great to be a millionaire, but he always had this fear in his mind that if he wasn't working, then he couldn't provide. And because of that fear, he sacrificed so much. He sacrificed time away from his family when he was growing up, time away from his family when he was married, time to himself, time to do the things that he always dreamed of doing. Maybe he had dreams, I can't remember, because I was just too young. And on top of that, he never bought any luxury items. He never drove a fancy car. He never took any trips anywhere in the U.S. or worldwide. A story my dad told me was one year my mother and father purchased some round-trip tickets for my grandmother and grandfather to go back to Finland to see his relatives. And these are relatives that he hadn't seen for 40 or 50 years since he left when he was 10 years old. And when my grandfather held these tickets in his hand, he sat down and he wept. And not just because of the idea that he was going to go back and see his relatives that he hadn't seen since he was a child, but that he had done so well in life. He had provided his son with an education, which in turn allowed him to support his family, and not only provide for his family, but even spend a little bit more on these plane tickets to take him back to his homeland. And my grandfather was a multimillionaire. He could have bought the tickets anytime he wanted to, but he would still, even when he was retired, he had the fear of spending money for his own personal gain. And that's something that I cannot see myself doing, and I'm pretty sure you can't either. And especially in this day and age where people used to be able to work for 40 years, retire, and live well. But we can't do that these days. With gas prices increasing, every commodity, as far as groceries go, water expenses, even real estate prices are going up. we can no longer work 40 years and retire comfortably. It's now looking to be 50 years, and I'm pretty sure when I get up in age, it's going to be 60, maybe 70 years, or who knows, maybe you have to work your entire life to retire. Can you imagine that? But what I'm trying to get at is you don't have to sacrifice your life to allow your family and generations of your family to live comfortably. So let's go back to that question. I want you to go get a piece of paper. Doesn't matter what kind of paper it is, preferably a nice sized piece of paper, and get a big marker as well. Not a pen, but a marker. This is guaranteed to work. Harvard professors use this on their students, whereas they asked all the graduating students in one class to write down this question and to answer it. And the students who actually took the time to do this led more successful lives than the students who didn't. So at the top of the page, write down the question, why am I here? Write it in big letters, why am I here? But don't answer it just yet. Take some time. Go someplace quiet in your house and just think, why am I here? Think back to that child long ago who had dreams. What were the dreams that child had? Because that child was you, and those were dreams that you had. And answer that question. Answer that question for yourself, for your children, and for your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren. Because you don't have to sacrifice your life to make sure that you leave a legacy. You don't. And if you're serious about leaving a legacy for your family for generations to come, you can take the first step by visiting my website, www.millionairelegacy.com, because I want to help you the exact same way my grandfather helped me, but without sacrificing the one thing that's most important to us all, and that's time. And what's even more important than time is time with the people that you love. So again, visit www.millionairelegacy.com, and I will speak to you in the future. Take care.